Hey, everybody. Welcome to the 91st week of this fun and frivolity. And speaking of frivolity, it's our last broadcast before the new year. And so, ugly Christmas sweater, we've got a contest going on. I will not reveal what's underneath it because it's even uglier.
I will testify that it is horrible, and I'm not participating in this contest unless this is ugly, which
No, it's fashionable.
a wife would be hurt.
Yeah, it's fashionable. So, and Jack Santaniello, I think you're on too. He was. So anyway, you guys know what the thing is. Yeah, you can harass us on the chat. Thanks, Mike. Happy holidays to you as well. And hit us up with Joe Gass, Merry Christmas to you too, buddy. So if you got questions, this is the last time you're going to be able to ask questions until 2022. So anyway, I think, Jack, do you have a little diatribe that you're going to do as well? I know Adam's got some stuff on North Carolina PPP. Oh, here Jack is coming on. I guess your background didn't work, did it?
I couldn't. There's one I'm trying to get it into the background, but it's not quite working. So you're just going to have to go with this. Not quite ugly, but there's a lot of stuff going on. I felt like when I
would call that ugly enough, Jack. You know, and
Okay.
I would argue that that's not even a Christmas sweater. You might actually be out in everyday life with that, which is very, very. God bless you. It's very.
Yeah, the look I got from my wife when I said, "Oh, look what I got yesterday," was yeah, no, you can't see it, but it's kind of like, it looks like Space Invaders thing going on here.
Yeah,
and
no,
just
yeah.
a lot of stuff
Be
going
allowed to
on.
shop for himself in public or on the internet.
There's
So
a
there you go.
reason it was only $10, Jack. I mean,
Yes.
you're starting to act like an accountant. You know, come on, man.
But it was
Hey,
a
look
good
at
deal,
yeah,
yeah.
it's a great deal.
Yeah, and I may or may not still have the tag on it, so I'm not sure. I'm not going to tell.
So Robert Mayetta says, "Hope you left the tags on."
That's right. That's right.
That's pretty good. All right.
Well,
go ahead.
did you want me to share with? So as you guys probably know, that the Supreme Court is basically punting or deferring on hearing things at this point with respect to mandates and the mandate. There's just there's no, a lot of times the Supreme Court will, and even the appellate courts, the Court of Appeals, and even state courts. And so, and maybe here's a little lesson on the judiciary. So you have essentially kind of a three-part system, both on the federal level and the state level. So you have the federal Supreme Court, the Court of Appeals, and then you have the federal district courts, and then you have like a magistrate court underneath that. For state courts, similar, you have the state Supreme Court, you have the state Court of Appeals, and then you have the trial courts, which in North Carolina are separated between the Superior Court and the District Court. And you also have a magistrate court, so technically 3 sections. So you get up the chain of command, or the chain of judiciary, when it's appropriate. And so, for example, you get to the state court, state Supreme Court, but also more importantly, the federal Supreme Court, when it is an appropriate time to basically say which is the right way to go. When you have disparate, differing opinions among, in this case, the federal judiciary, so amongst Court of Appeals or amongst federal courts. Now, you can skip sometimes to the Supreme Court and not go through the Court of Appeals when there's something that is very urgently needs to be addressed. Say an issue on impeachment or something like that. You're not going to go through the normal the chain of command or chain of judiciary. But from my perspective, the reason why that the Supreme Court has not picked this up is that there is still a lot of confusion, but there hasn't been the lower courts, a sufficient number of lower courts that have made a decision one way or another that they have to become the referee to say, this is the way we're going to do it as a country. And all of you lower courts need to abide by that. And even when that happens, the lower courts interpret what that means. So they can pick apart and many times do pick apart the opinion of the Supreme Court and say, okay, this is how we're interpreting and opining upon the opinion of the Supreme Court and implementing their directive on how we should handle certain cases, which basically means that the facts and circumstances of each case, it can create a different result in what seems to be the same or similar issue within the state of North Carolina. So there's 3 districts, federal districts: the Eastern, the Middle, and the Western District, and we're in Charlotte in the Western District along with Asheville. So it could be something, you know, a court in Wilmington says one thing, federal court, and a court in Charlotte says another thing, and you know, but interpreting the federal mandate that has been put down, and I shouldn't say mandate, the opinion by the federal Supreme Court. So that's why you have all of this going on. And I think also impacting that is the fact that President Biden has backed off somewhat on his push on getting this done, both on the, well, on the private employment side, but also on the government side. So we're not hearing a whole lot of, okay, you know, skate or die kind of thing. You're in or you're out. And that's a very old reference for those of you on the line. I know that 2 of you are smiling. Yeah,
I used
2 of
to
you.
love playing the game 720.
There you go.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where, you know, not to continue on with this, but that's what's going on. And I don't think that we're going to hear anything about that in the near future. Switching briefly to what's going on with this little bill that's sitting in front of Congress. The more I hear and the more I read and listen to, including Good Morning America this morning, it was basically that there's still too many Democrats, which it doesn't take many at this point, that are not saying no, but they're saying no, not in this way, not in this fashion, not with these numbers kind of thing. So they're still working at it, but as we get closer to holidays, to the holiday and holiday end of the year kind of thing, I just think it's unlikely that we're going to see anything substantive before December 31st. And then it becomes a matter of, okay, you know, anything that happens, how is it put forth into the workplace? Who pays for it? I mean, there's just so many different questions as to who's paying. The government's going to pay for this, but not that. Insurance companies and that. There's just too many cooks in the kitchen, and to really force this through so quickly without being well thought out. And people would say, well, isn't 500 pages of writing well thought out? Not necessarily. If you've ever seen kind of like the first 10, 15, 20 pages of anything federally related, it's about, well, back in 1918, when this was, you know, the power was established, so you get that kind of stuff. So anyway, that's kind of the summary on that stuff.
So I'm going to interject one thing. I heard this from Adam via one of our colleagues. So it's not the Build Back Better plan, it's the Build a Bear Better plan. You know, Build a Bear, it's Christmas time, so think about, you can remember it, Build a Bear Better, right? I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, he asked me if I would laugh more, but I told him inside, not outside. But his coining of the bill was not worthy of an outside laugh, just an inside giggle. Sort of like Jack's dad joke, or Jack's dad joke.
Yeah.
I've got them lined up for today too, in case we have some airtime.
Oh no.
And I'll give away Starbucks cards if people can get the answers, because I haven't given them away in a while.
You got to bribe them.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll let Jack take Robert's question, but the couple things that I had for this week, you know, first off, North Carolina posted it, but then they took it back and assuming they'll post it again, but they finally gave some guidance on what to do about the PPP expenses that they allowed to be deductible for 2020 and then, you know, 2021 for people that got PPP round 2 funding. And, you know, basically the way the PPP expenses were removed as a deduction from your personal return is there was an informational item that appeared on your K-1. This would apply to S corporations, partnerships, and Schedule Cs, they just weren't added, but it was an informational item on your K1. And then on your personal return, you basically just added some income. So the process that North Carolina has laid out is they're making it kind of easy. They're saying you don't need to amend the business return to reflect the removal of the informational item. However, the initial guidance is that you need to amend your personal return, which just requires more work instead of some automated fashion. So, we're waiting to see if they do anything a little bit more automated, but outside of that, as a firm, we're just gearing up to say right out of the gate, let's just start banging these things out systematically. Because, we know from our tax software who has that line item present. So it's easy enough to come up with a list of everybody that we need to fix internally and then fix them. Not to say that that's easy, because if there are clients that are on the phone, we are going to bill you for this. I'm sorry, I didn't make the rule, but it is work on our end. That's one item, and then secondly, to get back to the bill that they're discussing back and forth in Congress, it is worth repeating, just so that everybody is crystal clear. Part of what I'm about to say is current fact, meaning like it could always change, but it's highly unlikely. And then the second part is Adam's speculation, which, I would say is fairly grounded, fairly well shared, but here you go. The fact is that, while the current Build Back Better bill does contain some tax increases, the only tax increases that are in it for anybody that's going to be on this call is for really, really large C corporations, which none of our clients, even our biggest ones, would have been in the crosshairs to be considered really large for the purpose of this bill. And then secondly, anybody that's got a pass-through entity, which would be primarily S corporations that weren't already subject to self-employment taxes. There was a surtax that would impact our clients, but that surtax doesn't phase in until you're at $400,000 of income. Then there was also an additional surtax on really large income earners. I think the phase in was about $25 million. That would really only hit people that had big transactions typically within our client base in a given year. So the targeting is really limited. So when you go back to the S corporations, $400,000, you'd say, wow, that's not a whole lot of money, relatively speaking. But what's also in it is the ability to deduct your state and local income taxes. So if you say, all right, look, I got more tax on the one end, but I get a deduction that I haven't been getting on the other hand, those two kind of net each other out to where for you to really see an impact, you'd have to be an S corporation owner with income over $1 million. And even then it would just be on the first dollar over $1 million. So, for our client base, we're not seeing a whole lot of real super big negative impact. That doesn't mean that Adam's necessarily for the Build Back Better bill, but it's not a huge negative impact from a tax rate increase side. So, the questions we keep on getting asked is, well, what about capital gains? What about other rate increases? This is where it gets to, fact plus Boatsman speculation. Fact is none of that crap is in this current bill, and there's almost no chance that it's going to be. Some of that stuff was in the Senate version of the bill, but that was when it was a $4 trillion bill. Now it's not. Now it's half of that, and they, as a result of that, they ripped out a lot of the tax provisions that were in the Senate bill that were punitive. Speculation is that, again, I just don't see any Democrat voting for a tax rate increase that's going to hit John Q. Public before the November midterms. I mean, that would just be, they already did the circular firing squad once. I cannot see them doing it again. And if they lose the midterms, there you go. It's kind of case closed. If they win the midterms, could they do a tax rate increase? Yeah, there's a probably, at least 50-50 likelihood that there'll be something proposed. But if history is our guide, the ordinary income rate would be effective prospectively if they make any changes there And if there's anything that's going to have to do with capital gains taxes or estate and gift taxes, there'll be kind of a demarcation date, which is like the date of announcement, which if you just kind of play that out, November midterms or, November 4th, 2022, they don't get sworn in until I think January sometime of 2023. So that kind of by default puts you in the safety zone for 2022, unless for some reason they win in November and they don't wait for the swearing in January and they just go ahead and do something in December. But even then, it means that if history is any guide, you're safe for 2022 on ordinary rates. And if they do a capital gains rate thing, it'll be for transactions prospectively from the date that they announce, which will be some date after November 4th. So for a lot of our clients that are evaluating, should I do a transaction this year or next year? My own feeling that I feel is very grounded is that as long as it's a transaction that occurs sometime before the midterm elections, you're probably fine. And by that, it just means that it's under contract and, set to close. So if it's after that, wait and see what happens with the midterms. And I think, one of our clients did something pretty cool because the buyer asked for a delay and the seller, as part of the consideration, received a tax mitigation clause that just said, hey, look, capital gains rates are a little bit in flux. If something passes, then we also, since you requested the delay, buyer, I want some consideration in the event that a tax rate increase does occur in that window of time before the closing. So that's a way to potentially mitigate any sort of tax rate increase that is, stuff like that is actually fairly customary in transactions that, if the buyer's causing something adverse to happen to the seller, the buyer makes them whole. That's pretty typical. So don't be afraid to ask for that.
So, Jack, whoa.
Yes.
I'm going to read this question from Robert, and you can deal with that.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. Well, first we have to make a comment because Joe Gass says, not to speak ill of Gary. Well, you ought to see what's underneath here though, Joe. You'll just you might vomit in your mouth. But it says, Jack, your Christmas sweater is very tasteful. So I guess we know how he feels about mine.
Well, thank you. And you ready for the big reveal? I found the background that I wanted. So that's why I have my video off. Okay,
Please
ready?
do.
3, 2, 1. Ta-da.
Ah, beautiful. Now that is yummy. I'm glad that my lime green is in fashion with the other gingerbread ugly sweaters.
Yeah, you've thrown down the gauntlet. The next time I have the opportunity to do a Zoom background, I think what I want to find is cousin Eddie dumping the RV, just to see if I can get that as a good background.
Yep.
All right, so here's Robert's question. I knew we could count on you, Robert, to give us a good question. As the vaccine becomes less effective with new variants, oh boy, this is all fact, and this is all based on legal precedent. So get teed up here, Jack. Will vaccine mandates fade and mask mandates come back? And when will people begin to see it like a seatbelt? I've never heard of the COVID vaccine or the COVID like a seatbelt, but hey, that's pretty cool. Jack,
So,
take it.
Yeah, of course. Interesting question. So what he's really asking, and I think he knows this, Robert's smart. He asks questions and he may know the answer, or at least know some of the answers, right? Possibilities, which is, so remember that the only way this stuff happens, meaning the mandate, is that if the president uses his powers, essentially emergency powers, to direct the CDC to issue directives. And there has to be justification for doing that within the CDC mandate that has been given certain administrative regulatory powers. And I think it may have been maybe a month or two ago that we put up what the power was for the CDC that basically said, it has to be under essentially emergency situations, that there has to be an urgent need to protect the public welfare. And I'm paraphrasing, but that's what's going on. So, as the vaccine, at least the one that we all have, starts to fade in effectiveness, which maybe I shouldn't put it that way. It probably won't fade in effectiveness. It will be not able to be used to repel or reduce the symptoms and the outcome of the Omicron variant. And I don't know what the next letter in the Greek alphabet would be for the next variant, but whatever that is, and whatever the next one. It's funny, this morning I heard the term alpha and beta, delta, Omicron, and it makes sense. I was always wondering why they went straight to delta, and meaning, okay, in science, the delta, the triangle, means change. So maybe that was like the first change, but there is an alpha and a beta variant apparently. And so, it goes back to the ability, the efficacy of that being emergent. And so I don't know if it's a matter of saying you don't have to get it. It may be the mandate is you have to go get this version of the vaccine, which then will combat different variants. Who knows? As far as the mask mandate goes, interesting that, okay, does it become the seatbelt, of our generation essentially mandated? I don't know. I mean, it has been success in other countries for a long time now, Asia in particular, with using masks that, and, I remember thinking and like, okay, why is that person, a person of Asian descent, wearing a mask on an airplane? And I remember thinking that maybe like 10 years ago or so. Well, okay, because it makes sense that you would do that when all these bugs and viruses are floating around. So I don't know if it'll ever get to the point of being mandated. And I think it's, there was a lot of resistance, and there still is, of wearing seatbelts. My grandparents refused to wear seatbelts, and my grandfather was significantly injured, by not wearing a seatbelt. And then even after that accident, still refused to wear a seatbelt. So it's a matter of changing people's perspective. I find myself sometimes saying, I don't have a mask and I'm in South Carolina. So I'm in South Carolina in that moment and don't have to wear one. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to go back to the car and get one. I'm just being lazy. So, would a mandate cause me to go back to my car and get one? Well, I guess if there is some sort of punishment related to that, then maybe. So don't know if it'll rise to the level of being a seatbelt in our generation. Maybe down the road, it becomes the norm. I know there was a time, and others have expressed this to me, that not wearing one after having worn one, you feel like something's missing. It's like, okay, I left my cell phone, so I got to go back and get my cell phone, kind of thing. So not wearing it. And now I think it's kind of gotten back to, yeah, okay, I'll wear it, pain in the ass kind of thing. So don't know, but we'll see.
Yeah, I kind of, I viewed it a little bit more like the smoking ban analogy, because with the car, they put them in cars and then they put all these warning lights on. I don't know how you do that with a mask, but I mean, at the end of the day, my informal survey of the Harris Teeter in antiquity, it's on the border of Davidson. Are people following the rules or not? Because in Mecklenburg County, there still is a mask mandate. Is that, in the beginning of the reinforced mask mandate, probably 9 out of 10 people were masked up. Now, if I go in there, maybe 50% are masked up, and maybe only 75% of the employees are actually masked up properly. Then of those, remaining 25%, half of them don't even have a mask on. The other half are, the below the chin, which even bother
It's a Bluebeard.
Put it on for. So it's like, other than give yourself a little acne on the chin there, just in case. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like, with the if I go back to just remembering how the anti-smoking thing happened, I mean, that was sort of anticlimactic, but you had business, and it's the same story. I mean, business owners were actually bore the brunt of enforcing an anti-smoking establishment, but that happened, you know, kind of from what I remember. I mean, I was in Arizona at the time when Arizona did it, but it was like without a shot fired, it seemed like. I mean, there was a little bit of like oh, it's going to kill our cells. We're all going to go down in flame. Nobody's going to want to drink anymore. Really?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, that's a long way of saying, I don't think so. I think instead we're just going to figure out a way to, you know, make things better. And then if you don't meaning like prevent people from getting really sick and everybody else just go, whatever, it's worth it to not wear a mask. Just my own opinion.
You know, it'd be interesting, and I think to your point, which is business owners making the decision essentially in how they run their business. So, you know, I also experience going into a restaurant and half of the employees are wearing masks, and you're in a food establishment, you're at a restaurant. And I think to myself, well, I would really appreciate if all of them were wearing masks. And shouldn't the manager or the owner of the restaurant force that to happen? Because don't we want, even if we don't want to wear masks ourselves, shouldn't we want to go to places where people are wearing masks? I mean, it's very self-serving, but I know people who feel that way. And so going into a restaurant that is known for or is touted for being in full compliance of wearing masks as food preparers and servers is appealing to people, even if they don't have to wear the mask when they're sitting at the table themselves. And so then the problem gets shifted from, you know, do you have customers that are coming in to, can you get staff that are willing to wear masks? And I think that making them wear masks is an easier sell than requiring them to be vaccinated necessarily. So, so I think business owners need to evaluate whether it is a good thing for them, for their businesses, to impose that requirement that employees wear masks to make the customers feel more comfortable, even though the customers are in the shops hacking up a lung essentially, and they don't care that they're not wearing masks themselves. So,
yeah. And I mean, if you follow the smoking thing further, I mean, not to belabor the point, but while we're stalling for time, for more questions to come in, I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
with that.
hit us with questions.
Yeah.
We
I
talked
mean,
about masks enough.
Well, but I mean, seriously, if you just put this on the time perspective relative to smoking, I mean, you know, the first, I'm going to get the date wrong, but it's pretty close to the right time period. Jack, if you want to fact check me on this, but I want to say the first Surgeon General's warning on smoking came out probably sometime in the either late 50s or early 60s was the first time a Surgeon General's warning came out. And they banned smoking in Arizona probably in 2000 and probably in 2000, 99 or 2000. So I mean, that's, you know, 40 years.
Yeah.
You know, to finally, you know, kind of get there. So that's just why I don't know how other countries have pulled it off, and I haven't. All I can tell you is that when I was in Greece, in the 1 month you could travel to Greece, you know, while there are not any vast conspiracy theories going on in Greece, there wasn't as much compliance as one would have expected. And even in the UK, it's like Boris Johnson's about to get thrown out because, you know, dude was throwing Christmas parties. So your own prime minister not even following the rules that were established. You know, I think California had the same thing happen with Governor Newsom. So it's like, I don't know. I just don't see this dog hunting beyond the last minute that it doesn't have to hunt.
so I found the date, but if someone without looking it up themselves can guess the decade, then I will give away a card. If they can guess the year, then I'll double it.
Ooh, Now this is
without looking.
testing somebody's
No.
honor.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
Google,
This is
the temptations of Googling that are
Unlike how
extremely
my kids got through school last year at CMS.
So while you're not Googling that and being honest, nobody's popping up. So that's interesting. I would have said in the 60s. I remember seeing advertisements about the health benefits of smoking from doctors. It's like,
all right. Well, I will send you your Starbucks card. So yeah, it was January 11th, 1964. Luther L. Terry, the then Surgeon General of the U.S., announced the release of the Surgeon General's report on smoking and health, and coming to the conclusion that cigarette smoking causes lung cancer and laryngeal cancer. So there you go.
wow. There you
Yeah,
go.
that's right. So I mean, and that report took years to get developed. So I mean, that just shows you kind of the time frame for something of equivalence. I mean, in fact, if you viewed seatbelts the same thing as any sort of similar parallel, I mean, that was probably also in the 60s, the seatbelts were late 50s, early 60s, the seatbelts were mandated. And even then it was sort of like, with my cold dead hand,
Right.
The seatbelt in my 66 Mustang, one might argue was not much of a seatbelt at all. In fact, there's a whole argument that it was safer to not wear it.
Yeah.
Based on what could happen if you wanted to be thrown free of that car.
Yeah. This was the seatbelt in my grandmother's, Galaxy 500.
Yeah,
That's
right.
She had a big, strong arm, evidently. So anyway, any questions from the gallery? Again, we're here to answer questions. If you guys have tax questions, end of year, let us know. That would be great.
In Cliff Clavin fashion, I can't do the voice, but so seatbelts have been mandatory. There's a question.
Yeah. Can you break down this recent statement from Alliance? Please share your thoughts. Here we go. On the freedoms, rights of business community versus individual freedoms of employees. The Charlotte Alliance is informing our investors about a piece of legislation that will be detrimental to the business community. The language would prohibit businesses from requiring employees to receive the COVID-19 vaccine, severely limiting business in managing its operations. The Charlotte Alliance joined with several other business groups, including South Carolina Chamber of Commerce, NFIB, South Carolina Retail Association, Greenville Chamber, and the Upstate Chamber Coalition, among others, in the following statement. Hold on, this is hit us up in the questions if you guys would too. So South Carolina has a long-held tradition of being a pro-business state that allows businesses to operate with minimal government intervention. Employee decisions have been left to individual businesses in our state, subject to what each business believes is right for their operations. The ability for businesses to operate without government overreach has and will continue to be a key building block of our state's booming economy. We ask the General Assembly to support the enterprise and reject this unprecedented step against the internal operations of our state's job creators.
I mean, that just sounds, I'm not familiar with that, but that sounds to me that South Carolina wants to pass something very similar to Florida, which basically says, pound sand to federal mandates. I didn't hear anything in there that says that an employer imposed mandate would be illegal, because that'd be sort of the opposite of the statement. I mean, if I'm the employer and I decide you're getting vaccinated, that's my choice, and all the courts have upheld that. That sounds like that's targeted more towards going contrary to a federal mandate, if I read that right.
What do you say, Mr.
Yeah, and I would say, so as a former member of the Board of Trustees of the Charlotte Alliance, when it was actually called the Charlotte Chamber of Commerce, and a current board director member of the Charlotte Alliance Foundation. And I'm not speaking on their behalf or interpreting their position other than to make a general statement, which is that the chambers and now the Alliance have been pro-business in a sense that it is, I don't want to say a self-governing perspective, but it kind of is, which is, okay, does the government, who knows better on how to run a business, including the health and safety of workers, which is the actual businesses, because those businesses are able not only to take the impact, the health impact, pro and con, but they also can take into account the economic impact on those businesses in imposing or proceeding along the lines of anything that is mandatorily imposed. So what I think is being said is that it's not necessarily a direct opposition to it. It is an opposition to the government making mandates without having significant business influence or perspective in what is good for the businesses. Now, I hope that what I just said is not interpreted, well, then, to heck with the employees, kind of, the health, that it's all about business and capitalism. And I don't think that's what that is about. I just think that the chambers of commerce are concerned with, or the mandate is to promote business and business activity. And so it makes sense that they would say, well, minimal government intervention. Now, I would say that there's people in the ranks of the chamber, and I should say the Business Alliance, because they get on me when I used to use the old phrase, but the Business Alliance in Charlotte, and then the South Carolina Chambers of Commerce that have joined in this effort, that they would, if it's a well thought out plan, to say, okay, well, and it is detailed enough that it isn't a one basket catches everyone, meaning that, even at the 100-person level, what is to say that the 100, that's the right number. And so you have the compare and contrast and the fighting amongst objectivity and subjectivity and setting a standard as well. So, I hear what is being said and understand their perspective, but I don't think that they're saying, no way to it. I think they're resisting government coming in and making a decision without maybe analyzing all of the facts and understanding the true economic impact on businesses, and saying, well, we don't care what it costs. We're more concerned about public health and safety.
Yeah, and I think that, from Caleb's subsequent comment, I think what they're basically saying is that, look, South Carolina, don't preemptively pass a bill that supersedes federal legislation, because that would arguably also mean that you're saying that the business doesn't have a right on its own, like Southwest Airlines in Texas. Texas has a law that says employers, you can't force an employee to get a vaccine mandate. Southwest Airlines said, go to hell. We will. Thank you very much. So I think that what the chamber is saying, or the Alliance is saying, is kind of complementary to that, which is, don't pass a law that says the employer doesn't have a choice, which even means complying with whatever federal law is in place. The other thing that I would say, now that we get to get on a soapbox, yay, is that, I ragged on the North Carolina General Assembly a lot associated with PPP expenses. I will say one of the things that I'm actually, even though I don't agree with a lot of the North Carolina General Assembly members, I will say one of the things that makes me very proud as a North Carolina resident is that our legislature has not screwed around with any of this nonsense, in the sense of, like, oh my God, we're not gonna let schools have masks at the state level. They let, rightly, wrongly, I agree with the approach they took. Let the local boards, make the decision in terms of the vaccine mandates. They haven't waded into that. So I really am, I'm happy that the General Assembly has taken a step back approach. My own personal opinion is they sort of learned their lesson of what happens with wading in with HB2. Because, you know, if I'm a large employer, my own take is that, you know, this is not like a shining beacon for South Carolina from a large employer attraction standpoint. Like, this is not a good look for you. Because, you know, now you're on the side of, you know, wow, didn't you have anything better to do with your time than to worry about like, there's already a court case, you know, you didn't need to pile on. But now I get off my soapbox.
So just in case anybody didn't see this, I don't know if you all see it or not, but basically Caleb said what they're saying is that it's detrimental to the business community if the government prohibits businesses from forcing their employees to receive the COVID vaccine. So while I'm going to throw a different topic into the punch bowl, and it has to do with supply chain, and specifically the supply of able-bodied and qualified personnel. You know, we see in restaurants all over the place, you know, help wanted, they're closing on Mondays because they can't get people to show up or whatever. And I would love to know from the audience, how are you guys dealing with it? You know, I've heard some crazy stuff of like outlandish signing bonuses in industries that were never there, paying, like I was talking with one person this week, and their daughter just graduated from law school. She's getting like a $40,000 signing bonus right out of college, and for a $200,000 a year. Like, are you kidding me? It's like crazy. And, you know, I've seen signing bonuses at McDonald's, you know, $15 an hour minimum, all that kind of stuff. But I heard something yesterday from a business owner that I've coached, and they've had meteoric growth in the landscaping world, very, very large multi-state landscaping group. And I said, how are you doing in laborers? You know, because they've got, you know, they've got to watch they've got to have documented workers. They've got a large Hispanic group that are very strong workers, et cetera, but they have to maintain, you know, that they're all legal and this and that. And he said, we were really having a tough time in Florida in particular. And this guy who they really liked a lot had his own business. And he said, I would like to partner with you. I can get all the workers. And he said, I want to get all of your business in Florida for the install world, which is kind of a lower margin business. This guy has a bunch of sod farms as well, and that's where the higher margin businesses are. And he said, he goes, man, I can't put all my eggs in that basket. You know, he's like, no, trust me, I can bring the thing. So what they did is they created a partnership where this guy was able to, he's got his own independent business, but he has been able to hire all these people and use the back end systems of this bigger company with a lot more sophistication and actually knowing how to run a business well. And I thought, wow, what a cool thing. I mean, literally the guy went in 1 year, $500,000 a year with his team to $5 million a year. And think of the ripple effect of how they're employing all these additional people. But I thought, wow, that's really brilliant. It's got a guy that's really tied into the heartbeat of that community. And the other thing is this other sod producer this guy called himself the sod father, and he was nasty. He got run out of business, but he called himself the sod father of Florida. And he would his guys, he would, you know, jack them around all the time. No offense, Jack. But I thought, wow, what a beautiful story of like, that's an entrepreneur figuring out how to deal with a current reality and where it's a win-win for everybody. So I just thought, you know, I don't know if anybody else is dealing with the labor market or not. I can't imagine that you're not. if you're running a business. But anyway, any other questions out there? We've had some good ones. Thank you, Caleb and Joe and Robert. Knew we could always count on you guys. Anybody
here's
else?
an interesting twist on while people are thinking of their questions is the not so much the and we've seen also clients and in the legal industry the paying of these extraordinary bonuses for bringing on young people. A lot of it, I think, is in anticipation of more deals going on in 2022 that people have been kind of pent up and they're ready to go. But then there was a report in the Wall Street Journal that maybe deal flow will slow down actually. So, maybe those professional firms have made a mistake in their anticipation. But I've heard from more than one client the following, which is that they get through the interview process, they find the perfect candidate, and then here comes the list of demands, which could be one or more of the following. Well, I'd rather not work on Fridays. I'd rather work 2 days remotely. I think that maybe I can work half days, come into the office. So the negotiating power of prospect employees has significantly increased. And many times now, it's wait until the 11th hour, literally, in the employment compensation negotiations, because to me, that is a compensation discussion. I would say that many people would feel that efficiency there's not as much efficiency with someone working at home than there is at an office. Now, it depends on the industry and the person and everything else, and I get that. But the traditional, hey, yeah, you got to come into the office and you got to sit at a desk. Now, I also understand the flip side of that is there's no travel time. The person can jump on and do their work as soon as they are able to in the morning after the kids are gone. So sometimes maybe not putting on makeup or shaving or even putting on work clothes. You work in your pajamas, but you're still doing work. I get all that. So hopefully it really just depends.
Hopefully
deodorant. Yeah. Maybe I'm wearing pants now or not. You just don't know. I'm not going to stand up. But yeah, definitely employees have a lot more juice for negotiating potential terms and conditions of where they work and how they work.
Oh, Robert, TMI, if you only knew what my ugly sweater was underneath this, that would be way too much information. All right. So here's another question for you guys as we go into 2022. I would think that we're planning on continuing. There's probably still stuff as long as there's value. If we've run the course, then we'll do an audible and we'll stop. But if you guys would think about what are the pressing issues that you want to have somebody outside of your own jar help you with in a forum like this, because if you are wrestling with it, there's a good chance that other people are as well. So think about that. You can email me if you have thoughts while you're, sipping Yuletide drinks and whatever. And over the holidays, if you want to, just send me an email, gfrey@trustbgw.com. Again, gfrey@trustbgw.com. Happy to accommodate that. Any other last questions for, those of us we're all wearing sweaters, for the three of us wearing sweaters.
Can I give away some money? Can I give away some money?
Oh, sure. Do we have to do a
cards.
dad joke?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it has to answer it.
I don't know. I gotta think.
Someone has to answer. These are pretty good. I have had these for a couple weeks, and saving them for the right time, because I thought they were better than kind of the average, which is not saying much because we're already at a low bar.
Bar is really low.
It is, yes. All right. So question number one, first person who gets this: why don't they let players wear glasses in football? come on, this one, think about it. Glasses, not wearing glasses. You still have to be able to see the football.
Man,
Nothing really?
dump the chump.
Because it's a contact sport. Come on, come on, come on. All right, all right,
That's
all right.
actually not bad. I mean, it does
That
make
one's
you
okay.
think.
It's cute. It's cute. Okay.
Next.
All right. I'm going to add the word Christmas into this because it doesn't actually say that. But how do Christmas trees communicate with one another? Actually, maybe I should say oak trees or some other tree that.
Oh, so it's not Christmas trees?
No, I just put that in there because, you know, it's Christmas. But how do trees communicate with each other? Nothing.
Happily.
No, they bark.
Oh, terrible.
What
That's
have
good
we,
enough. Can we call this Gary?
you have
It's
more?
All right, I won't put you through the pain. This one's more of a statement, but these two were better than the third one that I had. But you know what? I enjoy doing
That's
this because
sad.
I enjoy watching you guys like, okay, really? And then I can imagine the other participants on the line going, ugh. Okay, someone, at least one person's like,
They're
okay,
dropping
that's
like
pretty funny.
flies. You know, they're
Yeah,
just like.
that's right. Like the learning part of the webinar definitely over. So, all right.
Merry Christmas to everybody. Thank you. Happy New Year. We'll look forward to seeing you in 2022. Stay safe out there. Enjoy your
Thank you.
families.
Thank you,
All right.
And
guys.
don't spend $10 on bad sweaters.
Yeah. Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.